Let me tell you something that still gives me chills every time I think about it. This happened a few years ago, back in 2017. I was 27 at the time and working as an overnight security guard at a place called the Sunset Pines Hotel, a big, old-fashioned hotel tucked away just outside Flagstaff, Arizona. Now, I wasn't always in security. I kind of fell into it. I'd bounced around a few jobs before that. Dishwasher, delivery driver, warehouse grunt, but none of them paid well. The Sunset Pines gig, way better pay, but there was a catch. The schedule was absolutely brutal. One week I'd be doing morning shifts, the next I'd be stuck doing graveyard hours. My sleep schedule was a mess. Sometimes I felt like a zombie walking through fog. Anyway, this one night started like any other slow, quiet shift. It was a Wednesday, just after 11 p.m. I had 1 hour left before my shift ended at midnight. I was hanging out behind the front desk with a couple of the other night staff, Matt, who ran the night audit, and Jess, one of the housekeepers who liked to drop by for late coffee. We were chatting about nothing in particular when the phone rang. It was the landline at the front desk, the one only hotel rooms or internal extensions could call. I glanced at the screen. The call was coming from room 409. Now, that didn't seem odd at first. Guests called down all the time for towels or to complain about loud neighbors. So I picked up the phone like usual. "Front desk, this is Dan. How can I help you?" At first, all I heard was breathing. Not labored or creepy, just someone breathing close to the receiver. Then a man's voice, shaky and whispering, said, "Something's wrong down the hall, please. Can you send someone?" I straightened up. "Can you tell me what's going on, sir?" He hesitated. I could hear him pacing or shuffling. Then he said more urgently, "You need to come now. I think someone's in trouble. It's getting louder. Please hurry." Then he hung up. I looked at Matt and Jess, both of whom had stopped talking and were staring at me. I told them about the call and the guy's weird tone. Jess looked nervous. Matt just raised his eyebrows and said, "Maybe it's just someone drunk or messing around." "Maybe," I said, but something in that man's voice, like he was on the edge of panic, got under my skin. Room 409 was on the 4th floor, which wasn't far. I grabbed my flashlight and walkie and headed for the elevator. The ride up felt slower than usual. And I swear, the second those doors opened, it was like stepping into a completely different building. The hallway was freezing cold, way colder than the lobby. The air smelled off, kind of like old pipes and wet carpet. And it was dead silent. No TVs, no murmuring guests, nothing. I started walking toward room 409, listening for anything weird. Footsteps, talking, crying. But I didn't hear a thing. When I reached the door, I noticed the hallway light right above it was flickering. Not fast, just a slow, steady blink like something out of a bad horror movie. I knocked hard. "Hotel security," I called out. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I tried putting my ear against the door. Couldn't hear a sound from inside. Just as I was turning to maybe try another knock, a door across the hallway creaked open. I jumped a little, wasn't expecting anyone. An older woman in a faded robe peeked out. She looked pale, like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were wide and she whispered, "Are you here about the noises?" I nodded. "Did you hear anything unusual?" She nodded quickly, clutching the doorframe like she was scared it might float away. "A little while ago, I heard banging. Not like footsteps, more like someone dragging something, heavy. It was coming from somewhere near that room." She pointed to 409. "Did you see anyone?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, but something about it didn't feel right. It stopped just before you got here." I thanked her and she quickly closed the door. I could hear her lock it immediately, deadbolt and chain. At this point, I radioed down to the front desk. "Hey, can you call room 409 again? See if they answer?" They tried. No answer. "Can you check who's staying in that room?" I asked, already feeling that knot in my stomach tightening. A minute later, they came back on the radio. 409 isn't booked tonight. Nobody's staying there." Now that didn't make any sense. I literally got a call from that room 10 minutes ago. I pulled out my master key card and unlocked the door. The room was pitch black and ice cold inside. The first thing I noticed was that the bed was made, perfectly made. Like no one had touched it. Everything looked spotless. No luggage. No personal items. No signs of anyone being there. I turned on the lights and checked every corner. Bathroom, closet, under the bed. Nothing. But then I walked over to the phone. The same phone that had called the front desk. I picked it up. It had a little red LED blinking like it had just made a call. I turned it over, jotted down the serial number, and quietly backed out of the room. Back at the front desk, I pulled up the internal phone log system. Sure enough, there was a record of a call made from room 409 at 11:08 p.m., exactly when I'd picked up the phone. So, who made that call? The room was supposed to be empty, and I had just searched every inch of it. But someone had used that phone. Someone had to be in there. That night I didn't sleep. Not just because it freaked me out, but because the next morning things got worse. At 9 a.m., we got a report from a family staying on the same floor. Their teenage daughter, Lena, who had a separate room down the hall, didn't come back after going out to grab snacks the night before. She was officially reported missing a few hours later. We pulled the security footage from every entrance and hallway. Lena was last seen walking into the hotel alone around 8:30 p.m., roughly 2.5 hours before the call came in. And then nothing. No footage of her leaving. No one suspicious entering or exiting room 409. Room 409 didn't show up in any activity logs at all, but something about the timing made my skin crawl. I kept thinking about the man's voice. The urgency. The fear. I told the police everything. They took it seriously, thankfully, and investigated thoroughly. They even brought in a tech guy to inspect the phone and verify the call record. Everything checked out. But they never figured out who made that call, or how they got into a room that had been locked and unused for 3 days and Lena, still missing. That floor was shut down for renovations not long after. Rumor around the hotel was that a few guests had complained of weird experiences up there. Cold spots, scratching sounds at night, lights turning on and off. One guest even claimed their door had opened on its own at 3 a.m., and no one was there when they checked. Eventually, I left the job. Just couldn't shake that feeling. The cold in that hallway, the flickering light, the phone ringing from an empty room. To this day, I don't know who called me that night. I don't know what they saw or what they were trying to warn me about, but I do know this. Room 409 should have been empty, and it wasn't. Okay, so this story is kind of hard to talk about, mostly because when I tell people, they either don't believe me, or they try to explain it away with stuff like, you were just tired, or maybe it was a misunderstanding. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard, and I'm telling it here just like it happened so you can decide for yourself. This was about a year ago in early fall. I had to travel to this small town called Pine Hollow for a short-term freelance job. It wasn't even supposed to be a big deal, just a quick 3-day trip to help with a promotional shoot for a local food company. They paid for the flight, the rental car, and put me up in a hotel called the Cedars Inn. I'd never heard of it before, but online it looked cute and quiet, tucked between some pine trees off a 2-lane road. I got there around 7 in the evening. The sun was already setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The hotel wasn't huge, maybe 35 rooms, 3 floors, with this old stone sign out front and weirdly dim lights in the lobby. Still, it had a cozy vibe, the kind of place where people go to get away from the city. At the front desk, a lady named Denise handed me a key card and gave me this super practiced smile. Room 313, she said, tapping her fingers against the desk. Top floor. Elevator's just down the hall. Now here's where things started to feel off. As I stepped into the elevator, I noticed the hallway smelled faintly like mildew and lemon cleaner. The lights above me flickered once. Not a big deal. Just old wiring or something. I rode up to the 3rd floor and walked down the hall toward my room. Room 313 was at the far end, right next to the emergency exit. The carpeting was this ugly orange-brown color, and the wallpaper had faint water stains near the ceiling. I dropped my bags by the door and reached into my pocket for the keycard, and then, just as I was about to unlock the door, the room next to mine, 311 opened. Out stepped this man, mid-40s, maybe older, skinny, wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down. His face was long and pale and his hair looked greasy, like he hadn't showered in a couple days. But what stood out the most were his eyes, wide, glassy, like he hadn't blinked in too long. He smiled, not saying a word at first. Then finally he said, "Hey there." "Neighbor, huh?" I sort of smiled back out of politeness and said, "Yeah, just checking in." He held out his hand. I didn't really want to touch him, but I shook it quickly just to be polite. His hand was cold, like refrigerator cold. I said my name, Emma, and he just nodded and backed into his room without saying another word. No nice to meet you. No, enjoy your stay. He just shut the door behind him. Quietly, carefully. At first I brushed it off. Just a weird guy, no big deal. You meet all kinds when you travel. But something about the way he was staring at me, like he was studying my face, memorizing it, made my stomach twist a little. Anyway, I got into my room, unpacked, and flopped onto the bed. I had a small suitcase and a duffel bag, nothing fancy. The room was clean enough. Queen bed, old TV, beige curtains. The usual hotel stuff. It had that musty, over-air-conditioned smell most budget hotels have. I took a quick shower, then turned off the lights and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come easy. Around 11:30, I heard the door in the hallway open again. Not mine, the one next door. Footsteps followed, slow, uneven. I was lying in bed in the dark, staring at the ceiling. And then through the little strip of light under my door, I saw it. A shadow. Someone was standing right outside my room, not walking past. Standing still. The shadow moved forward slightly, then back, then forward again, like they were trying to decide something. I held my breath. Finally, the shadow drifted away. I heard the footsteps continue down the hall. The exit door creaked open, then shut. I waited a few minutes, then got up and double-checked the locks. Deadbolt, latch, all good. Still, I barely slept that night. The next day was busy. Meetings, site visits, all the usual work stuff. By the time I got back to the hotel, it was close to 10 p.m., and I was completely wiped out. I threw my bag on the chair, kicked off my shoes, and got into the shower. About 10 minutes in, while I was rinsing shampoo out of my hair, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Beep, a soft beep. Just one, like the kind hotel room doors make when someone unlocks them with a key card. My eyes snapped open. My heart started racing. I turned off the water and stood completely still, water dripping down my face, and then I heard the door. Click, creak. It opened. Slowly. Then it closed. The air in the room changed. Like someone else was breathing in it now. I could hear soft footsteps on the carpet. Closer, closer. Whoever it was, they walked right past the bathroom door. I hadn't brought my phone in with me. I had no weapon. Just a towel and whatever courage I could scrape together in that moment. I slowly reached for the pants I'd left on the counter, pulled them on, and pressed my ear to the bathroom door. Silence. Then a quiet sound. Zurr. A zipper. Then rustling. They were going through my stuff. I wanted to scream, but I was frozen. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. Every second felt like forever. Then, all at once, I snapped. I pounded on the bathroom door with both fists and yelled, "Hey! Get out, I'm calling the cops." Instantly, I heard someone sprint across the room. The door flew open, slammed shut. I waited 5 seconds, then burst out, locked the door, grabbed my phone, and called 911 with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. I also called the front desk and told them what happened. The police showed up in about 15 minutes. Of course, by then the guy was gone. But a couple hours later, they found him in the hotel parking lot, just sitting in a dark sedan staring up at the third floor. They didn't say much, just that he was being questioned. I don't even know if he was arrested. The hotel didn't offer me a refund. They didn't even move me to a different room. I left the next morning, hours before checkout, and drove straight to the airport. For weeks after that, I kept thinking about what he was doing in my room, why he came in knowing I was in the shower, why he waited, and what would have happened if I hadn't yelled. Maybe he just wanted to steal something. Maybe, but there was something about the way he stood outside my door that first night. Silent, patient, that makes me think otherwise. Whatever he wanted, it wasn't money, and I hope I never see him again. Story told by Uncle Dave, summer of 2007. Okay, so this story's been sitting in my head for a long time. Every once in a while I'll think back to that trip and just get this awful cold feeling in my gut. Not because of ghosts or monsters or anything like that, but because of real people. Real people who do things you can't explain. Things that make your skin crawl. This happened in the summer of 2017. Back then, I had just taken some time off work and decided to treat my nieces, Hannah and Lily, to a little vacation. I don't have kids of my own, and I've always been close to my sister's girls, so I thought, why not spoil them a bit? They were 9 and 12 at the time, sweet, energetic, and always ready for a new adventure. We booked a 3-night stay at a resort just outside Asheville, North Carolina. It was called Pine Brook Lodge. Big place with a water park, arcade, and lots of families. The kind of place that looks perfect on the brochure. Pools, giant slides, ice cream machines in the lobby. I figured it'd be all laughs and lazy days. The first day started off great. We got there early, checked in, and let the girls loose at the water park. I sat back with a coffee and watched them giggle and splash around like crazy. They made friends with other kids almost instantly. I remember thinking, man, this is going to be a great weekend. After about 2 hours in the sun, we decided to head back to our room to change and grab dinner. I called the girls over, but only Hannah came running. When I asked where Lily was, she just shrugged and pointed toward the back corner of the water park. She was playing with some boy over there, she said, so I went. Looking, I must have walked around that park 3 times before I spotted Lily. She was in a weird little section tucked behind a row of palm trees and lounge chairs, just sitting and chatting with a boy who looked about her age, maybe 10. His skin was pale, almost grayish, and he didn't smile much. Next to them were 2 adults, a man and a woman, who I figured were the boy's parents. I gave a friendly wave, introduced myself quickly. They barely reacted. The woman gave me this tight, uncomfortable smile, and the man didn't even look up. Just sat there staring ahead like he was waiting for something. I told Lily it was time to go and thanked the couple, but they said nothing. Not a word. As we walked away, Lily told me she'd been playing with the boy for a while. He's kinda quiet, she said, but nice. His name's Oliver. He said his parents want to invite me to dinner. That stopped me in my tracks. They invited you to dinner? I asked. Yeah, she said casually, like it was totally normal. They said they eat late, like after 9. I didn't say anything to her right away, but inside I was screaming. Who invites a kid they just met? Without even speaking to the adult they're with. When we got back to the room, I told Hannah, and then called my sister to fill her in. She was just as freaked out. We agreed to keep a close eye on the girls for the rest of the trip. Later that night, we headed back upstairs after grabbing sandwiches from a little diner nearby. It was almost 7 p.m. and we were ready to chill for the evening. The elevator dinged, and as the doors slid open to our floor, I swear to you, Oliver and his mom were standing right there, just standing, like they were waiting for someone. The woman looked up, smiled that same tight smile, and asked, "Will Lily be joining us for dinner?" I froze. I didn't know what to say. I looked at Lily, then back at the woman. We already had dinner, I mumbled. Maybe another time. Her smile faded. Like instantly, she didn't say anything else, just turned and walked down the hallway, her son silently following her. Not a word. Not even a goodbye. That night I sat the girls down and laid down the rules. I told them they were not to talk to or go near that family without me no matter what. Lily looked bummed out. She said she liked Oliver, but Hannah, who was older, seemed spooked. She told me she thought the boy was weird and that his eyes didn't look right. We all got ready for bed. The girls shared one of the queen beds and I had the other. We watched some TV until they fell asleep, and eventually I nodded off too. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but it was dark. Really dark. The kind of dark where everything feels too still, too quiet. I heard a soft whisper near the front door, then I heard it again. Lily. It's me, I'm here. I sat up fast, heart pounding, and saw Hannah standing beside me whispering, Uncle Dave. She's at the door. I jumped up and ran. Lily was standing by the door, her hand on the lock, and I could hear someone whispering on the other side. The voice was low and slow like a lullaby. Just open the door, Lily, it's okay. We're waiting. I shouted her name and she jumped back like I'd hit her with a jolt of electricity. I rushed to the door and looked through the peephole, but I couldn't see anyone. Still, I opened it, and I swear I saw someone turn the corner at the far end of the hallway. Just a flash of movement. Like someone walking way too fast, disappearing behind the corner where the vending machines were. I sprinted after them barefoot, down the carpeted hallway. But by the time I got there, no one was around. No footsteps. No elevator noise. Just silence. I checked every corner, every doorway. Nothing. Back in the room, I was shaking. I told the girls to stay in bed and locked every possible lock on that door. Then I went down to the front desk. The young guy working looked nervous. I explained everything and he called the night manager. They said they'd check the security footage, but then told me something that still makes my stomach drop. There aren't any cameras in the hallways, the manager said, only in the lobby and main entrances. I told them about Oliver and the creepy parents. But the manager said no one by that name had checked in. They searched the system, even went room to room on our floor the next day. Nothing. They refunded us the last night of our stay and offered to move us to another hotel about 20 minutes away. I didn't argue. I packed up the girls and we left before lunch. We tried to enjoy the rest of the trip, but there was a heaviness that never went away. Every time someone knocked on a door nearby, the girls jumped. Every time we walked through a hallway, I looked over my shoulder. Even now, years later, I still think about that pale boy and those silent parents. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know how they found our room. I don't know why Lily almost opened the door at night, except that they were trying to lure her out. Sometimes I wonder, was that really their child? Or was he another missing kid they were using to get to others? Whatever the truth is, I'll never forget that night. And if you're ever at a resort with your kids or your nieces, stay close, be alert. Because the scariest monsters don't hide under the bed. They wait in the hallway.